You're listening to a DM podcast.
Welcome to Over the Back Fence. I'm Di Edwards.
I'm Nicola Dale, and we're buddies of nearly 4 decades. And yes, we actually do happen to share a back fence.
We do. We love parties, people, inspirational stories, and honestly, making the most out of life.
So join us as we open our hearts, share our stories, and hear from some of the most inspirational people in the world. And have a laugh along the way.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Hi guys, this episode is brought to you by Air Women, experts in natural hormonal health for women over 40. Bear in mind it's Air spelled E-I-R.
Yeah, their products, they're designed to support energy, which we love,
that.
mood, sleep,
Love
and
that.
more, helping you feel your best.
Oh, what more could you want?
We want
and
that.
honestly, we actually love them.
Absolutely
We really do.
love it.
And look, if you want to get a 20% discount, just use the OTBF 20 at checkout for an exclusive Backfence listener discount.
eirwomen.com.au. Go get onto it.
Yahoo! And have your best
Woohoo.
life.
Woohoo, Didi, we are
I'm so
back.
excited. We've
Woohoo.
got a wonderful guest coming out.
I know, don't we love it? You know, and I love the connections from one person to another. And it wasn't really all that long ago when we were actually like at the International Women's Day breakfast.
You mean the International Women's Year?
Yeah, I'm with you. It's
Oh, the
day,
International Women's
month,
Infinity.
year. Exactly.
Yeah, that's where we met Robyn.
Yeah, because you're sort of, if you haven't listened to Liz Courtney, she's amazing. She's been a guest there. And so through Liz, how you meet other people. And so we were really lucky. We were MCs at this fantastic brunch
Beautiful,
full of the
beautiful
most
morning.
inspirational women in the room. Talk about uplifting, mentoring, having a laugh. It was so
And
good,
I'm not a
wasn't
morning
it?
person at all. And I'm like, what time are we going to be?
A couple of coffees into it, yeah.
I could go to the early hours of the morning. But, yeah, so what I love, to be honest, because we go to a lot of functions now. Initially it was like, who are you? No, you can't come, slam the door. Now it's like the doors are open. Yeah, yippee, we're
Woohoo,
coming.
in our happy place.
But at some of these functions, you and I, we are so the same. We are so on the same page when it comes to people.
We are.
And I give you a look.
I get.
If we don't like them, it's usually or whatever. But generally, we are on the same page. And we both met this woman that we're about to interview, and we both went. It was almost in unison.
It was.
If we feel that, we know that the listeners will all get it.
I agree.
And that the inspiration, because that's what this podcast is all about. And this woman oozes that. In
She
every sense of the
certainly
word.
does, and I sort of think if you haven't heard the name of Robyn Foyster,
Yeah,
I don't
not
really
Forster,
know.
not
yeah.
Foyster.
Yeah, Foyster. You know,
With a Y.
To be honest, really, she is the queen of everything in media. You know, she's sort of been in
love
the
that.
industry for so
Where's
long.
your
and it's
tiara,
just-
Robyn?
Yeah, I think so. Well, let me tell you a little bit about Robyn, and I really want to sort of sing some of her praises. She really is. She's a multi-award-winning journalist. She was the editor-in-chief of the Australian Woman's Weekly. I mean, seriously, that
The
is the
Bible.
most. Yeah, it is the Bible, the country's most iconic magazine, really. And then there's been Women's Day, there's been New Idea. She's worked in the US, she's worked in the UK, she's done TV. I think she's done like nearly everything in media over the decades. But she hasn't stopped there. She's now embraced the whole digital shift, launching Women Love Tech, the Carousel and Game Changers, championing women in tech, business and entrepreneurship. She's a leader in AI, AR and digital innovation, a global speaker on leadership and technology, and a mentor to women making bold moves
Honestly,
in their
Robyn,
careers.
could you do
I mean,
anything
if that
more?
wasn't enough, and I've even heard
Seriously.
she's even put the Spice Girls on
I
TV
think
for
mine's
the first
like
time.
one
I mean,
line.
really.
Mine's like, Di did television,
And that's
just
only
podcasts.
the beginning. I think, as what do they
Bloody
say?
hell.
Liz Courtney says that's just the tip of the iceberg. Welcome, Robyn,
Robyn.
to the
Oh,
back
love it.
fence.
Thank you.
And we really did mean what we said about meeting you and
Yeah,
wanting
we
to get
really
you
did.
on.
Can
We
I
just-
say it was mutual? I tell you, you guys were just a breath of fresh air. And the fact that, your friends comes across. And, in that room that day, there was this real, all mainly women. There was some men, but it was, you really feel the energy when you get a group of women in the room. And there was a lot of love for everyone there.
Yeah,
so
it was a love-
I
a
really,
love-in.
Really, really loved
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
and we had
yeah.
that a few weeks before. We were at a MC at a function. It was 300 women in a room. And Nick and I always went, oh, my God, if one more woman comes, I went, it's just women. oh my God, it's just women.
Yeah.
And it was an excitement, this effervescence, you know, and I'm like, and we felt it in the room too. So it was a bit of fun.
Yeah, you got to have fun at these things, and you know, like I think we all did, which was the main point of it. And getting some good speakers up talking about interesting stuff always helps.
Well, we had a lot of those on that day, let me tell you.
Absolutely.
So look, I think Nicola's done the major intro to who and what you are, but to be honest with you, I think, as I did mention earlier on, that you are an inspiration. I think the only way to start is, as Nicola did mention, UK, LA, and of course being involved in Australian media. But how about sharing? Also, you can spice things up with the Spice Girls and tell us that story too.
But quite a funny story.
Run through, and not like chronological order with your career, but if someone's listening and would like to be inspired, such as, should I leave our fair shores to go and get inspired, or, you know, enhance my goals or my visions and whatever, and head overseas? Sort of give us a rundown of how your career came about.
It was funny. I started as the first female racing journalist in Australia.
Racing?
Racing.
As in
Horse racing, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Giddy up.
Yeah,
incredible.
giddy up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gee.
Which was quite fun,
Giddy
actually,
over to
because you'd go, you know, with your badge into the racing, you know, room of the Jockeys Club, and they'd sort of go, sorry, you're a woman. And you go, no, here's my badge.
Wow.
But that was probably helped by the fact that my dad had a stud and was a breeder, bred racehorses, and so I grew up around horse racing, you know, going on in my life as a young girl, and on a big horse stud in Mudgee. And so I sort of lived in Mudgee, between Mudgee and Sydney. And when I got asked to go to England on a trip, I stayed there. I got a job at one of the newspapers, and I was only 23. It was a bit scary at the time because, you know, they asked me how much experience I had, so I lied.
Of course.
The only way to,
only
way to get
but
that
it's
first
called
job.
lying with confidence.
Yes. Yeah. I said, you know, we only have experienced journalists of, you know, like minimum 3 years on a Fleet Street newspaper. I said, yep, that's what I've got.
6.
Yeah.
Good girl, go girl.
That's it.
So that was quite fun, and it was the first colour newspaper in the world called Today Newspaper. And it was a mid-range newspaper, and they did things differently. In fact, actually, my first gig was as an environmental reporter. And back then, if you remember, there was CFCs and they were killing
everything.
Basically they were killing the environment. And one of our jobs was to sort of like profile, you know, the different stories and bring that to people's attention. And we did, and they stopped doing CFCs, which was a really positive climate success story, if you like. And it's good when you get that sort of a result. But I went from...
You save lives, for God's sake.
And we actually, funnily enough, just recently I spoke at Climate Action Week on a topic which was interesting about how do we flip the script on the environment. And we had a number of different people from the media, including Liz Courtney, who you just had recently on the show.
Very popular too.
Yes.
Yeah, and a great documentary maker, and she's so passionate about the environment. But it's interesting, you know, like, because we all suffer a little bit of really sort of doom and gloom, and there's a lot of negative stories put out there about climate change, but to actually get involved and keep people away from having climate change anxiety, you've got to give people hope and actually present some of the good things that are happening out there, which of course there are, and also ways that people can actually present stories in a more interesting fashion in media. Because
and
media,
did you do that?
Yeah, well, look,
in
I
London?
think in London, I tell you, we had the most amazing time in newspapers back then.
Back in the day. So what are we talking, the late 80s?
88.
Yeah,
1988.
that's right.
Yeah.
I remember
Nothing wrong with that. I was flying in the airlines in 88, flying to the UK. And
it was a fun time. Like, they sent us on stories all around the world. Like I covered stories in Belfast on the first non-denominational school, which was paving the way to stop the whole problems with the, you know, what was happening in Ireland, which was very serious back then.
It was.
Very much so.
And then I got to do things like ski trips in Switzerland and
as a story?
Yeah. They actually
Hello.
They would say to me,
I think that was a
Kids
bit of
like
One request I got was, you know, we're looking for single women to do a story about what it's like to travel solo. And I said, hand up.
Sounds
always
like a
hand up. You
hoot.
know. And they said, where would you like to? Would you like to go riding in the Andalusia mountains, or play tennis in Sicily, or would you like to? And I'm like, Yes, all of the above.
Yeah. How brilliant.
I love hearing
Yeah.
stories like this. So it's like for all the listeners that if you get an opportunity, just grab it.
What do you
know?
say? You
know.
say, take a leap of faith, just go for it.
You just go for
Just
it.
Yeah,
you know,
just take that leap.
Just take
Yeah,
it.
It's true.
Jump into it.
As
You
my
know.
brother says, go for it.
Go for it.
Go,
Yeah,
go with
yeah,
go for it. You
yeah.
got to go with
Oh,
it.
what is
Go with
yeah.
it. Go with it, isn't
So,
it?
Yeah.
okay, so that sounds like, I mean, you're inspiring me to get back into media. Podcasts will do, thanks very much.
Podcasts
No
are
one's
where it's
offering
at.
trips overseas, but they
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
I have to say the most inspiring thing that I did, I got the opportunity to do a story which it just wouldn't happen for a journalist today, and that was to go to the Sahara desert with a woman who'd lost her husband in a plane crash during the 50s after the war. And she just got married. Her name was Olwen Haslam. And we became lifelong friends after this incredible journey. And we flew to Algeria, and then we went to one of the refugee camps in the Western Sahara, which was quite an extraordinary thing. There were like 40,000 people, and we were part of a group that brought medical supplies. And because they loved the story of Olwen trying to see her husband's final resting place, the Sahrawi people said that they would take us into Mauritania, which, like now, is the most dangerous place on the planet. And to get there, we went through sandstorms. We slept out under the stars. She was nearly 70 at the time.
What about your hair being done and your makeup? I'm very concerned. How old are you at this stage?
I was 23.
Wow, you're still 23.
Yeah.
Geez, you packed a lot in that
I
year.
did. So we get there, we didn't think we could find this place. You know, we were facing sandstorms, you name it. We did find the gravesite of her husband, and she never remarried. That was what was incredible about this story, is Ted Haslam was the love of her life, and he died 6 months after they got married, and Olwen never remarried. And when we got there, the thing that she asked was, she wanted to know what were his last words, and the person, said, he said, oh, the wind, and I went, it's a funny thing to say, and just tears just flew down her face, and of course the last words were Olwen, her name.
Oh, the wind.
Owen.
Owen.
Oh, God.
Wow.
And so did you write a story about this?
Yeah, but they let me go for 3 weeks on one story, which
God,
is just...
the budgets were different then,
They
Robyn.
certainly were.
Yeah.
So all of this is about igniting your passion for stories.
Yes,
Yeah, it
absolutely.
is.
And hence
Stories,
your whole life
friendships.
to this.
Yeah, and friendships that come from it, and
Yeah,
good
remarkable.
things that come from it,
Beautiful. So how long are you with the coloured newspaper?
Today newspaper. I became a consumer columnist. In fact, we called ourselves consumer cops, and we did crazy stuff like we'd see something on TV where they get a pair of Levi's and they test how quickly the Levi's would rip apart by 2 cars. So we'd actually road test that. Or
Right.
we do a story. We made things fun. We get a story on umbrellas, and so I'd take it into a wind tunnel where they were testing Boeings, and then see at what speed.
I love
get
it.
a poor model
How
who's
kooky.
standing there. At what speed did the turn upside
Oh,
down?
wow.
Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins. And then another thing that we did, which is actually funny when you look at what happened later, is I got a chef called Bruno Loubet, who was like a top French chef. And I went into a very poor school in East London, and I asked them what their budget was, for the food of the day, because they were serving up very unhealthy food. And then he did some amazing food as a result. And then I'd interview the kids, compare the food that they'd eaten, which they really liked, to the food that they normally get, and then ask them where they normally eat. And it's like McDonald's and everything like that. Anyway, that was a great story. But of course, that's then I saw on TV that Jamie Oliver then went and did something very similar to that, and which is fantastic because he took it to
inspiration.
America and and actually changed the eating habits of like a whole country.
He certainly
You
did.
trailblazer,
And tell us
Robyn.
now, you went to the US as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
And then what you were actually doing, you were doing TV. What did you like? So did you like being on the
Producing.
screen?
You're producing.
Are you
Yeah.
actually on the screen too, or behind the screen as well?
Both.
She was doing both.
I was the West Coast correspondent for a show called Big Breakfast.
Yes.
And Big Breakfast.
That's big.
Yeah. Remember Paula Yates?
Correspondent,
She used to do these interviews on the bed, the sofa. And whenever I interview people...
Who married Michael Hutchins.
Michael
Yes,
Hutchins.
and they met on the
Very
breakfast
sad,
show too,
sad,
didn't they?
sad
Yes,
wedding.
yes.
Yeah, it was actually
Awful.
terrible.
Awful.
But when I was in LA, I would say I'm from Big Breakfast, and all the celebrities would go, "Oh, so where's the bed? We're going to do the interview on the bed," because they're so bored with the types of interviews
course,
that they normally do.
understandable.
They're
Yeah.
like, at least that changed things up a little bit. But
That must have been fun for us, for you, was it, Robyn?
yeah. There was one very funny occasion. I was asked by another breakfast TV show called GMTV, which I ended up working on for quite some time, and they asked me to help get backstage, get celebrities on, live camera interviews during the Oscars. But of course, I didn't have time to get my Oscar accreditation. So I had a Scotland Yard card, which was out of date, and I had a great hairdresser and got
Which is essential in LA, isn't it?
yeah. And I said, I'm going to the Oscars. I want hair higher than heaven, just like do your bit. And then I had a party at my place, and then just sort of like closing towards the end of the Oscars, I hired a cab and said, take me to the Oscars. And you wouldn't believe it, but we passed all these crowds and crowds of people. And then when we got to the end, I thought, I'm just going to keep going. I've got to pass. I just said, where's the media room? And they just kept directing me until I got upstairs to the media room, where they said, where's your accreditation? Finally. And I said, it's this card, out of date, Scotland Yard card. And they said, I'm very sorry, you can't go in. So I went down one level of stairs, and there was a door. So I opened the door, and oh my God, I was backstage where the Oscars was taking place, and Harrison Ford, my hero, was there on the stage.
Oh, how brilliant. You had your hair done,
My
so
hair
you looked the
done,
part.
everything. I realised I could have walked right in and said, hi, I'm Robyn. I'm from Mudgee.
I was going to say, you can't keep a good country
That's
girl
like when
down.
we had
I
Wendy
love it.
Harmer on, and she was sort of saying how when
love
she
that.
went, to the Oscars, and she said that I think it was her nieces and nephews are back home, and they're watching TV, and they're sort of saying, like there's Harrison Ford, there's all these celebrities, and they're going, and then there's Auntie Wendy,
Who had breast
quite
milk
funny,
dripping
like
down.
that. Yeah,
Those are Oscar stories. Really
So
funny.
I followed Harrison Ford because, if you see Harrison Ford off stage, you're just like, I'm going where you're going. So he gets in a lift and I'm just sort of looking up at him.
Oh my
And what
gosh.
happens after the Oscars is they
Wow.
basically have a bar and they all drink. And, back then it was when Steven Spielberg's big film came out and Liam Neeson was up for
he
one
makes
award.
my knees shake, that one.
Tell you this
Oh.
random wafting around
I
the
am-
Oscars. This is
So
incredible.
this is good. So you've gone rogue.
This is-
You've
this
gone
is-
there.
at this
This
stage,
is a story in
At
itself.
this stage, I'm completely
Go.
rogue. And
Go, Robyn.
I'd just done an interview with the Bel Air Hilton, the Bel Air hotel manager, and he sees me, he goes, Robyn, I wasn't expecting you to be here.
Oh, of course.
I said,
VOP. Excellent.
I'm from Mudgee. It's fine.
Yeah. Who are you with? Oh, I'm with Emma Thompson.
Yeah.
And
They're my mates.
Yeah.
Who I hang out with.
So I did go round. It was the year of Schindler's List, and I remember it's sort of pertinent actually because I did hear Liam Neeson saying to Ralph Fiennes, saying, "Mate, it'll be your turn next time." And of course, we've just had the Oscars, and I sort of was hoping maybe he might have
Ralph?
got it,
Yes,
but he
yeah,
didn't.
he didn't.
He
Yeah,
missed
that's
out
round
again.
two.
It did
Yes,
remind me
yeah.
of this night. But we went round to. I finally realised I had to actually do my job and not go rogue because I was enjoying it too much, like ear wigging on all of these celebrities. So I go around the other side, and then I see, of all people, Thomas Keneally. Now, Thomas Keneally wrote Schindler's
Incredible.
List.
Yes,
Incredible.
And I don't know if you...
A lot of people don't realise that.
It was
Yeah.
called Schindler's Ark.
Yeah.
And so I sort of say, because I'm working for a British channel, and I just think, this is amazing. So he introduces me to, of all people, the star, who I thought was like the people that I admired most in that book, was one of them was Oscar Papenburg. And Oscar Papenburg risked his life and helped Schindler to save these Jews. And I met him and I thought, I realised all of a sudden that you have all these celebrities here. But this man who had, he had the concentration camp tattoo
Yes.
on his arm, and I saw it, was the real hero. And the story here was interesting because for 12 years he rang Steven Spielberg every week asking him to run the story and do a movie on
Perseverance.
On perseverance, yeah.
That is a great story in
Persistence.
itself. For
In
every
itself.
listener to
Yeah.
go, it took for 12
Never
years.
give up.
Never give
ever
up.
give up. And you hear that quite a bit in
Yeah.
life, don't you? When someone, they keep on going, keep on going, keep on
Because they
going.
believe.
Yeah.
And that
Don't
nothing
they?
is going to stop them.
That's right.
It's true.
Wowza, that's
and what was
amazing,
interesting
Robyn.
also was that, like,
All backstage and she's a ringing.
Yeah,
She don't do this.
woo! But you're the best
loving
hair in
it.
LA with the bouffant, and want to see.
Well, yeah,
I
Shelley
should be getting-
Winters was in the hairdressing salon, and I was thinking, you're the real deal, and I'm just trying to steal my way in there.
And you did. And you
Bet
bloody
look
well
absolutely,
did.
you're still gorgeous and look gorgeous. And if they've got any photos there, we'll put them up. And
Yeah,
I'll say
LA,
them.
LA
like
is
that.
kooky and kooky things happen.
Yeah.
It's a bit mad, isn't it?
Oh, it
LA?
is mad.
And
It
how
is
long were you
mad.
there for?
I was there for a couple of years.
Yeah.
It was great fun, actually. And, I feel very sad at the moment because a lot of my friends have lost their homes in the Pacific Palisades and
Yeah.
such a big community there. And
tragic, those
it's
fires,
very
yes.
sad. Yeah,
So
yeah.
tell us about the spicy Spice Girls.
Oh,
yes,
what
okay.
happened
about
there?
that.
So there's a bit of a love story here that happens
Woohoo.
first. So I had left the day before I got sent to the Sahara Desert. I met my now husband, who I've been married to for 30 years, and said, hey, it's so nice to meet you, but I'm going off to the Sahara Desert for 3 weeks and I'll see you when I get back. And I did the same thing to him and went to America and said, hey, I've been offered a job as a correspondent in LA. I'll see you in a year.
Hey, keep him
Wow.
on his toes, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's
Totally.
the trick. That old
I love
chestnut,
this.
Robyn.
So finally, as
See
he
you
said
around.
in the wedding
I love
speech, he
it.
reeled me back. Finally, he reeled me back, and I came back.
Was he Aussie working in
English?
Oh, English.
Yeah.
Oh, lovely. Married the English gentleman.
Yeah, but
Lovely.
what happened is, sadly, my big mentor in my life had been my grandmother, and she passed away. And at that moment, I had that sort of sense of, who do I really want to be with at the moment to, console me? And it was Joe, and that's when I realised that he was the love of my life and worth leaving the glitter of Los Angeles. And I went back to the UK and got a job in breakfast television at GMTV, which was also great fun. And hence the Spice Girls story, because that was back in the early 90s. And I was running the showbiz desk. And so we put a lot of people on for the first time. We broke a lot of acts like Backstreet Boys and
huge.
like loads of them.
Yeah.
But one of them was the Spice
I should
Girls.
have come on.
I know,
Shouldn't have done a
Di,
sing
come on,
song.
break into a song. What's
Damn
that?
it.
Spice Girls one. Di loves singing, don't you?
Damn it, Robyn. Why didn't I know you back
No
then?
need to be shy, Di.
Shy day. So, okay, hit me with it. The
Okay, so what they
spiciness.
did was a bit different, is
Yeah.
that they came in with a tape recorder and they had that little tape and they were sort of like all talking to me at the once. They wanted to meet us to sort of like, because you had to sort of get through us to sort of like get on the show. And there were 16 million viewers a week that we had on
Wow,
that show.
that's huge.
So we would virtually, that could guarantee you get a number one spot after being on the
That was
show.
the population of
TV then,
Australia
didn't
then,
Yeah,
and it was
yeah.
the thing.
It
Yeah.
was the thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that and Big
Yeah.
Breakfast, those two
Yes.
shows, like, they're really
Huge.
part of the culture and
Very
back
much
then.
so, yes.
And so the girls sort of introduced themselves. I'm Sporty Spice and I'm Posh Spice and I'm Baby Spice and I'm Scary Spice and I'm,
Wow.
like, and so then they put the tape into the tape deck and started singing, "Would you be my lover?" like this.
And I love
Yeah, I do. That's amazing.
And Sporty Spice, while I was watching them sing, started doing backflips.
Oh.
She was doing backflips, which was quite, they were, Posh Spice was so timid back then,
Wow.
like really quiet.
Right.
Victoria Beckham.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she still doesn't
It's
smile
interesting.
much, but anyway.
No, she's not
we'll leave that
smiley,
one.
is she? She's
Not
never
very
she's not going to get
smiley.
a Colgate
Not like us.
thing. I know.
Not like
She's got
us.
the big
Well, we
shiny
love
white
to show
teeth.
our teeth. Okay, and obviously that was like an audition sort of thing. Yeah, you'll do. We'll get you on
And
the
that was
show.
the
Yeah.
first time really on prime time television.
That was their first-
So there you go,
Wowza.
folks. Robyn, who's talking to you in your ears now.
So it's never
we
too
can
late
thank for
to
the
get on.
Spice Girl.
Yeah, Spice
Spice
Girl.
Girl.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And then you got married, and so you ended up with the love of your life. And
Yeah.
then he ended up being an Aussie then, did he? You brought
Well,
him
I
out to
brought him
Australia and
back.
He followed
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah.
Notice how
very
she
bad.
dragged him into the spicy bit of the
Yeah.
Spice
Yeah.
Girls.
Before I went back to Australia, I sort of had my kids and I started just working as a freelance writer. So I wrote for Hello magazine, and I did all their
How
covers.
fabulous.
Yeah.
How fabulous.
So
I love.
We like Hello magazine.
That's one magazine.
I like Hello, and I like Vanity Fair.
Yeah.
But I mean, you still
So,
can't, to be honest, you can't
like-
beat the Aussie Woman's Weekly. I mean,
No,
there was
it's
a
true.
time
Absolutely.
there.
I
That
used to
is
call it the
iconic. You know,
Bible.
something my grandma loved that.
It's-
My mum loved
it's so
that.
true.
And everyone, and we still love it.
I know,
It's
we do.
iconic.
I don't read it as much as I used to, like a lot of people with magazines in general now. But we ran into someone actually, you passed the microphone to it.
Julia Sahara.
Robyn held the microphone up to her, and she's a very well-known editor.
Oh,
you know,
yeah. She was
House and
editor of
Garden,
Women's
am I
Weekly
right?
as well.
Something like
Yes,
that.
Then
that's
she was
right.
Better Homes and
Yes.
Gardens.
Like she's
editor.
really reputable editor. And
Oh, yes.
and I can't remember what you asked her, but it was fascinating what she said about magazines, because for all of you guys listening now, I was just at the hairdressers a couple of hours ago. Not that you can tell, but that's another
good.
story.
Don't you? You're looking
Great.
good, baby.
They're great
Really good.
hairdressers. I'm in a
Maybe
hurry.
like the LA, like Robyn had. Like we're getting ready for the
Will
Oscars.
it get me at the back of the Oscars? I don't
heaven.
think so. But what I loved is that she talked about, because, there's something tickling always in the back of my head about, I love a magazine. When I grab it, I go, oh, it's like a best friend that I've been missing, for a long time. And she said, well, actually, they're making a comeback.
And they're calling them Lean Back.
She
magazines.
lean back and lean
Lean
forward.
back.
Lean
She
back
said
and
lean
read
forward
them.
is with digital.
Yeah.
And she said lean back
And
is with a
isn't that
magazine.
straight away
And that
comforting?
hit home with
it's
me.
relaxing.
Because your feet up, cup of tea, whatever.
Yeah. It's also
And
as
you're
you time.
digital, you're like really intense, you're blah, 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 whatever.
But you
It's
go on
weird. Your
holidays,
structure,
Diane,
your body.
We go, so if you go away with girlfriends straight away, they go straight up and they buy mags too, don't they?
Yes,
like that.
it's
Because it's sort of
true.
like, because you're going to be on, you're going to have a cocktail, you have a magazine,
Yes.
and you have this, and it's one of those things there. And I still like them, like even in your home, to have really nice ones
It looks
on the coffee
Absolutely.
table,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that, to read and to
Yeah,
enjoy.
Vogue
and
But I
to
used to
look good
devour
and all
them,
those
though.
ones there.
But
let's
it's
sort
good
of
they're
ju-
making a comeback. So,
So tell us about what was it like working, and how did that come about with the Australian Women's Weekly? 'Cause
Yeah.
that's really
Yeah, that's
huge.
massive.
It's an iconic magazine, and it was a privilege to edit that magazine, I have to say, because you sort of had a responsibility to its history and
It is.
and covering really important stories that mattered, and you were sort of like they're historical. Like I remember, for instance, the Black Saturday bushfires, and we'd actually just put the magazine to bed. And I was like, under my watch, I can't not, cover this momentous event that's happened. So I sent to a journalist and photographer down to cover it, and their pictures and coverage, was quite extraordinary. And sure that they'll be used, as references from years to come. But, there was that responsibility. And it was also picking, I remember
True.
when Barack Obama became president, I put Michelle and Barack Obama on the cover.
Wow.
And that was, that did incredibly as well, because people were ready to, for him to
And embrace the change.
embrace
too.
the change.
The cover of the Woman's Weekly is such a big deal, isn't
Huge.
it? Gets it.
Yeah.
And was that ultimately your tick of approval?
Absolutely.
Editor.
Like
I
absolutely.
the buck stop. I mean, how exciting!
stop
Yeah.
with
And
me,
how?
yeah.
Tell us your time frame when you were doing that.
Yeah, so what happened was that I first had to bribe my husband to leave England,
Yes.
and I went to edit and look after magazines in New Zealand. And I then ended up becoming editor-in-chief of New Idea first. And so when I was at New Idea, decided I'd just channel Women's Weekly. And I had big budgets, so I could get,
Good
to cover
people.
all the stories that I wanted, so I started doing things like just championing things like breast cancer. Actually, one of the very poignant covers I did was my mother had a double mastectomy, and I'd never seen a woman ever show the fact that she had both breasts removed. And my mother's pretty brave. And I said, Mum, will you do this? Because it'd be empowering to tell the story of, what got you through and everything. And Mum did it, and that was an all-female.
Did she?
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Wow, there's the
That's
courage,
great.
isn't it?
That's
Amazing.
incredible. So you were doing, you were in New Zealand, you were saying you were doing...
I was in New Zealand. My
New
first
Idea.
job before I started, they made me editor of New Idea, and then also in charge of all of the Pacific magazines there. So that included Marie Claire and Girlfriend and those types of magazines.
Well,
And
so popular, weren't they?
They're very popular.
You just make me think what Nicholas said in the intro about you're voted one of BNT's most powerful women in media. I mean, this is huge. I mean, at one stage, the publisher and editor of Australia's 3 biggest flagship mags, the Australian Women's Weekly, Women's Day, and No Idea. Sorry, I have to say that.
No. Well, hasn't it changed though a bit?
Plus,
It
you're a
has
7
changed,
network executive as well.
I've been on the
I
cover of
mean,
the No Idea.
plus a
I've gotta
mother
say.
with 2 boys.
And it was all a beat up story. It
I
was,
can
it was a
imagine.
beat up story, that I was going to get married, because I was at the Logies in a white dress or whatever, and they just made this thing up. It's quite funny how they could just make stories up, like that.
No
or
idea.
put in the No Idea.
So I'm going to have to weigh in here because when I was at New Idea in New Zealand, the first issue that I had was the tsunami. And because that magazine had actually at that time a worse reputation than it had here, I decided it's actually easier to run a magazine that is rubbish and has a rubbish reputation because you've got more to work on, to build it up. And so you do proper news stories and you do campaigns like run rings around Australia to get women healthy, and you do, put breast cancer on the cover of magazines. And probably the one that I won Editor of the Year award for was I put domestic violence on the cover of New Idea. And the whole issue, I say, how am I going to cover?
Congratulations on that, because that is such a huge, important thing.
Yes,
and to
so
recognise.
What are we talking, 90s?
Oh, yes, it was 20 years ago that I did this.
Talk about things like that behind
a lot of
closed
things were
doors
taboo,
too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Sadly.
So what I did on this particular, how am I going to do this? And because their domestic violence did not go on the cover of magazines. And so I decided that I'd do a treatment and make it the white issue. So I got, Chris Hemsworth was in Home and Away back then. Whew. And very dishy then even,
I reckon he might be one of the James Bond.
He's very James Bondy, isn't
Very
he?
James Bond. Anyway, so I got the whole cast of Home and Away with white T-shirts and jeans in the water, the ocean, up to their thighs, and the headline was "Enough is Enough." And I did a survey on how big the problem was in Australia. I did, how do we break the cycle of violence? And it was a beautiful gatefold cover, and I had all of the people like Lisa Wilkinson with a white car and Spotty Dalmatians in a picture shoot, but the whole emphasis was on domestic violence. And there was some really sad stories that came out of it because, and positive stories, mind you, because we raised money for women who were suffering. But, some women had to fill in the magazine. They were buying 2 issues because they didn't want the husbands who were beating them.
Yes,
They didn't want them to see that they were filling out the survey, and they wrote that in the survey.
That's remarkable.
Yeah,
Oh,
and so
how's that? Wow.
And so Black Friday, domestic violence, what are some of the uplifting moments for you with the stories behind all these magazines?
I
What
think- I-
moments do you recall?
I covered Princess Mary's wedding in the church.
Beautiful.
I was actually
Oh,
there
wow.
in the
Beautiful.
church.
How
looking
It's
at
my
wonderful.
favourite wedding dress and headdress out of any royal.
It was quite
Exquisite.
I
funny
actually
because
love that she met her prince.
I
Good
love
old
that.
slip
In
in
a bar,
Sydney,
the old
like
slip in.
that.
the story. I thought this story is just fantastic. I want to go and cover it. So
I know.
It's so cool. It's just so cool.
It was so cool.
She was just born to be
and everyone
royal,
wanted to
you
be
know.
that princess.
Everyone.
That met the charming, beautiful
Yeah.
looking, gorgeous.
Good on her. She was
you know,
from up
air
at
of-
Tassie
Yeah.
real
And
estate.
he was so normal, Fred, sailing around.
Yeah, sailing around.
You know, he seemed normal. I didn't know him that well.
Yeah.
I didn't meet him at the slip-in. Did you meet him at the slip-in?
Gabriella, my daughter's hung out with him. You know, she's done speedboats and whatever in Italy and stuff
he
with
sailed
him.
a lot with
at the
mates.
Biennale
He's
in
a
Italy
groover.
and stuff like that. Yeah, and she
He's
says
a
he's just great
dude.
doing the shots and little singing. And,
Anything else that sort of was fabulous that you remember? That was
Any other one with
like
big
exciting.
iconic covers? Because
Yes,
you're saying
yeah,
Michelle and Barack Obama. Who else?
Oh, well, we put, so many people on the cover. We specialised in weddings, I have to say. All the major weddings we covered. Olivia Newton-John was my first cover.
Wow.
Then the next cover was the 3 gold medalists, Libby and Stephanie and...
Oh, the swimmers.
The swimmers.
Okay,
That's,
yes.
and what was challenging about that was they were going to China for the Beijing Olympics. and we didn't have time to shoot them, so we compiled the photos and compiled them together like they were together, because there's always a backstory behind the cover, you know.
I bet.
Yeah.
And the other thing was that, of course, I didn't know whether they were going to win, so I called them the Golden Girls.
Brilliant.
And
that
good,
stuck.
isn't it?
And that stuck.
Isn't
And
it?
yeah,
That's
well,
amazing.
I called them the Golden Girls because they hadn't. Well, I couldn't say they were winners.
Brilliant.
But
Love
when the
that.
first, like, I think it was Libby who won the 3rd medal, and I was like, yes, they are truly.
Oh,
Yay.
well, now, Robyn, tell us about
Yay.
the transition,
Wow.
because then we all know then magazines were popular, but then they kind of weren't. And then digital came on the scene. And so what happened? Tell us how you've sort of embraced that, you know,
Yeah.
and now the revival, I guess, was saying of magazines, but it obviously went quiet and digital. And tell us about that.
Yeah, I think I sort of went from those halcyon days of magazines, and like, you know, there was 1 in 3 people who were reading the magazines a week in Australia. You know, it was
Incredible.
you know, most people were buying back then, you know, 3 magazines easily a week. And so
My mum used to get confused
Yeah,
at the grocery store. She'd go, "Oh no, Prince Charles is doing something." That was on Women's Day. Then she'd go to the next one. "Oh, it's
I know,
fine."
people believe it,
There
you
I
know,
come
this
going,
stuff
"Mum,
there."
for God's sake!"
Yeah.
It used to do her head in, and
Yeah.
then consequently mine. That, like it was the Bible.
yeah, it
They
was
believe
definitely the Bible.
Yeah.
I mean, going back, of course, it was the 75th birthday issue that I did for Women's Weekly. And if you look at the history of Women's Weekly, the reason it was the Bible was because women, particularly in the country, didn't have the sort of information that they
True.
wanted to. So they looked at the photos to understand what latest fashion was.
Right.
You know, they
True.
relied.
That's amazing.
So was it the internet then that sort of like changed everything? You know, like
Yes.
then it was
Yeah.
digital and
The
stuff
turning
there.
point. Good
The
question.
turning
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Well, there
Yeah.
was this
'Cause
big
then it's-
turning
I
forget
point.
about that.
You
The
know, so,
internet.
well,
Yeah.
you think
Come
that's
so
where it was.
far down
So
the
tell
other
us how
road.
you embrace that.
Yeah.
So I was wanting
Or
to be sort
ran.
of like involved in the sort of the digital side of the world of media, because I didn't want to be a dinosaur in my own industry. So I recognised that
Good
it wasn't
girl.
going to be long before, you know, most of the ads weren't going to be served to magazines. They were going to be served to the digital outlets. And that happened quite quickly 10
It's
years
interesting
ago.
you say
Amazing
that.
the speed, isn't
Yeah,
it? How
very,
Like, what are we
very
talking? What
quickly.
time frame?
This is this happened like 10 years ago.
So from
Just over
magazine
10.
to digital,
Yeah.
you say it happened quickly over what time frame?
Oh, sort of suddenly I went to 7, and then I went back as a group publisher of all the women's titles that went from ACP to Bauer magazines. It's now R magazines. And in that time, the digital side of things was massively changing. So I ran Harper's Bazaar, and our numbers were not as big as, say, because remember, this is the time when the influencers started.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
So the whole platform sort of
Wow.
changed for everybody.
So,
now,
like, we're
isn't
talking
it?
a
Everyone.
matter of years, just very short space of
Very
time.
short period of
Wow,
time.
that's incredible.
Well, when
So
you
I
think
can't
about
recall.
the
So
boom
consumed by it.
of mobile phones and things like, and all of a sudden you get your news now, you know, on your phone, and how things have changed so
Yeah.
quickly.
So
So
true.
I
That's
sort of
right.
get that.
And that's the other thing, is that you've got to look at what the mediums that are popular now, like, and how, you know, like when I realised that my children weren't reading magazines, and my friends' children weren't reading magazines, but they were on their phone, which became like your little mini computer, which became your photo album, which became everything.
So true.
And so
Libraries.
Yeah,
most
it is.
websites, they don't. If you look at like my websites, Women Love Tech, the Carousel, and Game Changers, the viewership is all on the mobile. We're designing things often for the big screen, but it's not really happening on the big screen. It's happening in the palm of people's hands.
That's so interesting, isn't it? It's true.
it's
You do.
good.
I do Zoom calls and a lot of things because you're on the
Absolutely.
run.
Yeah,
and
I
I'll
do
just do
everything on that.
it all on that.
While you're on that subject, tell us about Women Love Tech. What is that all about?
So I left magazines, and I started the Carousel first, which is a women's lifestyle side. And as magazines were closing and editors were losing their jobs, I was bringing them all on board the Carousel. And I started doing short form content. This is like 12
So tell
years
us,
ago.
what's the carousel, just for
yeah.
listeners?
Yeah,
out
it's a
there,
women's lifestyle site. So we have health and beauty and fashion and travel and sustainability. So that was my first website. And then I got very interested in technology. And I bought Women Love Tech, and I thought, you know, women and tech is so enabling. Tech is so enabling for us women for so many reasons. And then I sort of realised that statistics were so poor of the number of women. You know, if you think about technology, we have flexibility in our jobs. It's highly paid. It's the growth and innovation sector. And so why wouldn't you have an even balance of men and women in these technologies. But, like AI is huge. Only a third of women are involved in AI at the moment. Let's hope that changes.
Do you think it's a fear factor, or do you think it's uneducated?
It goes back to young girls, and that we're sort of steered away from STEM. I don't know about you, but when I was
Explain
at school,
for those that do
yeah,
not know
so
what
STEM subjects
means.
are your sort of science, maths, engineering.
It's very true. I
Mathematics.
think it is
Yeah.
very true, and it's great when you see that is changing now. But
You're
it was sort of
right.
technical. It was
Yes.
years ago, but still, it was
Yeah.
sort of like, do you want to be a nurse or do you want to be a
Yes.
primary
School
teacher?
teacher.
That's what I
Or
got
whatever,
asked.
and that was
Or a
it.
hostess.
Or,
Yeah.
If you're lucky to fly internationally,
Yeah,
like that.
Happy
Yeah.
days for that.
Exactly.
But yeah, so women are really picking up, doing the heavy lifting when it comes to caring, those caring roles. Often poorly paid and unappreciated, but hugely vital roles are being left to women. And we need to encourage women to actually get involved in tech companies from a young age so that they can be part of our future, because tech is determining our future. And it is exciting. So I got very excited by tech. And then I even joined an ASX board, and I built a geolocation augmented reality app for Vivid.
How wonderful.
Wait a minute, as you do.
I know. So for all the
Go, Robyn.
international listeners, tell us what Vivid is
Yeah.
too.
Like Vivid is a great event that we have here in Sydney, which is really a celebration of innovative ideas. And so back when I did this, it was 2019, with my team, we were working with augmented reality. So what we were doing is there's a new word that came up back then, it was called gamification. And so the technology we had was AI, AR, geolocation and gamification. And so
What
we were able
language is she speaking,
So
Nicola?
we've got AI is artificial intelligence.
We've got that
Tell us-
one.
and
What's
tell
the
us
others?
AR.
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
Sam. Thanks
Yeah.
for being more switched on.
Okay, and then because we want let's get to the basics here.
Oh,
AI, yeah.
And geolocation sort of, is mapping you
Where
where
you
you're
are.
going.
Yeah.
And
Which
AI,
is so good.
Yeah,
You can
yeah.
find out exactly. That's when people spy on one another. Where
That's-
are you?
And what's the last one?
Yeah.
What's the last one?
Gamification.
Oh,
Gamification.
it's Sam.
Yeah.
Excuse
And so,
me?
Is that when you do your games on your phone? Is that your gaming thing?
No. So sort of
Okay,
when
tell us.
so gamification is a way of it's using the sort of gaming. Why gaming is so popular is because you're always wanting to get further into it because there's something exciting going to happen. So for the Vivid app, what they wanted was to take people not just to Darling Harbour, which is where they tended to have the
See all the
event.
lights everywhere. It's just amazing.
They wanted to take people also to Darling Harbour and also to Taronga Zoo and also to King's Cross, where the big fountain is.
Yes.
And so what we did is we gamified it by saying we could tell through geolocation, if you went to all of these different places, then you then could be part of the people who win a prize, and Samsung was the sponsor, so you won the latest Samsung phone. But the other thing that you could do is when you got to those places, if it was really busy, these installations, you could hold the phone up and you could see through augmented reality. So you'd hold the phone up and you would actually be able to see what the installation was about, the history of it. And
How brilliant.
Yeah, without having to fight between people. So we took that further, and one of the other sponsors was TAFE, New South Wales, and we got their artists to create artwork. And the artwork was incredible because we were showing people's artwork in a very new form, an immersive form. And so you would go to the fountain at King's Cross, you would hold up your phone using the app, and these amazing artworks would suddenly appear.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's like you see in the Opera House now
It's
when they
incredible.
do that, and they now sort of
It lights
shown
up all
around-
the sails.
all
It's
around the
magnificent.
world. Just tell us now, because we've got a lot of our listeners too, and they go tech, and they go, look, I've kind of that ship has sailed. I
But it
can't
hasn't.
Yeah.
do that.
I'm
like-
fearful.
and it's so good to hear it hasn't, because a lot of people go tech, no. What you used to say,
Yeah.
like young person, I don't know.
Yeah,
how to
in the
do
office
this. And a
I'd say
lot of
young
people
person,
still,
please.
Robyn,
It's true.
It's great, and
Yeah.
you're a really great role model. But just like there are still people who are hesitant out there, going, you know what, I don't know how to use that. No,
Switch
what
off.
do you say for basic steps to get into it? Like to just
And
don't
flip
be
the switch.
afraid.
Yeah.
Use AI, because I might go, this AI, it's going to be too scary. It's,
Yeah.
and They're fearful.
Well, this is what I would say. First of all, be curious.
Yeah.
Because
Ooh,
that's a
good
great one. We
word.
love
if you're
that.
curious,
Flip
then
it round.
you'll want to understand it. And then when you get to understand it and see the benefits of it, then it becomes really exciting because you can do things like from the day-to-day things that would have taken you a long time, like planning your flight and trip to your European vacation or wherever it is. And that can all be done using AI, and you can get the best times to book your flights using AI. What's going to happen with travel with AI is going to be huge. But even
That's fascinating, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
Can you just elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, oh, good, yeah. So you can literally, there's a number of different, they call them large language models, and all owned by the big tech companies. So you have Microsoft owns Copilot, and Google owns its own version, and then there's obviously Chat GPT.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
That
is
seems
amazing.
to be the one that everyone kind of knows.
It seems
It's
to
on
be the
phone.
generic sort
That's
of
the
AI
one
version.
that sort of kicked it all off. I mean, but there is another side to AI that I have to bring up, and that is that...
Well, it's
you
a
know,
balanced argument then, really.
Yeah, you have to have responsible AI, and I'm someone who's very concerned about unconscious bias being used in AI.
Yeah, I believe
You know.
I've thought about that too much, actually.
Yeah, well, you can just put
I
in,
can't-
like CEO and put image, and it'll be all men, and they'll be all white men, and they'll be all 50 years old, like for example. So what happens when women, young girls are seeing, those sort of representations and much worse things, like for instance, it can be used in harmful ways. So we have to be very careful. There are a lot of what they call existential risks of AI that we've got to be aware of. And
Break that down a little bit.
okay, when technology comes out as an innovation, and it comes out before the bureaucracy or the government regulations can regulate it. And so the best way to describe it is like the Wild West. So AI is no doubt our second revolution. So we had, the steel revolution, industrial revolution.
So get on board, really,
And
but you've
now
got to
it's
be
the
careful
AI
of the risks.
revolution.
The AI revolution.
Wow, it's an amazing
and
way of putting it.
It is transform. It will absolutely, and we haven't even seen the likes of it yet.
Wow.
So it's early days.
It's early days, and
But I like to even just was saying, so someone's like listening here going, well, I'm going to go on a holiday, and just makes it so much easier
Yes.
now. You can go there and get sort of like then the cheapest price because on a Tuesday
Yeah.
here, work it all out
Yeah.
and put it all in, and it comes up, and it's just amazing
Brilliant.
how it's so accurate.
Exactly. So, for instance, my niece is with me at the moment, and she's learning to do scuba diving. So she put the information that she has to learn and gave it the hints. So you have to learn to do these prompts for AI. The better the prompts,
Oh, you
the
give
better.
us some tips.
Yeah. The better the prompts, the easier, the better.
As in, what's a prompt?
Okay, good prompt would be, here is the information that I need to learn to be a scuba diver. I am doing a test and want to make this much more easy to digest and understand. Can you please simplify it?
Bingo. Isn't that good?
So my question to you is, if you're at university studying medicine, architecture, engineering, and you're using AI, do you think they learn at the end of the degree, do you think they're going to absorb as much information as opposed to
Yeah, I do
prior?
have a fundamental concern about people's ability to lose the capability to write because it's taking over as a way of being able to edit. So you might be a crap editor and the AI will do it better than you can possibly do. Even some of the best writers that can write better.
But if the AI is typing it out for you and you're not researching it and whatever, which to me that's how the brain works,
That's
to absorb
correct.
the information to get a degree.
Yeah.
But if the AI is doing it for you essentially,
Yeah.
what's the consequences of
So
that?
the consequences could be that it makes you not learn to do the research and develop parts of your brain that are quite important. So there are some things we just have not figured out
It's coming
yet.
so fast.
It's coming at
yeah.
us like
Revolution, as you
But
said.
it's interesting
Yeah.
too because I was hearing sort of like on the flip side as well. It's like Sally just was saying with doctors and things too. But they're going, when doctors say are trained really before that, they've got their degree, then they go in and bang, they're doing an operation, and that's sort of like they just have to just do it there.
They go to
Whereas
Chat
now-
GTP.
Whereas now they can do it with the enhancement of
Yes.
AI as a backing area for them as well. Than just going in beforehand, they could just go in and there was no real consequences. It's sort of like off you go. You've learnt that at uni. free. You're going to do it. Whereas now they've got
AI
that
will end
sort of
up
the
doing all
support.
the operations. I
Well,
think.
they do it
Those
as a conjunction.
robots.
Together.
I think that's the future.
Planes land now, like on without the captain. It's like straight away they go on automatic landing, and you just
Terrifying
go, wow.
thought.
But
It's true.
so many of the
It's
flights
true.
are on and
I know.
working with the airlines, and you
But
just
that's
hear
been
it.
prior to AI, hasn't it?
Well,
Well,
that's all
AI has
part-
been
that's-
going
that's
for
the
a
AI.
very
long time. In
But
a
that's
small way,
that's
yeah.
all
Yeah.
part
Now
of the
it's-
whole thing.
But it's early days still.
But yes, and
Yeah.
it's
So
and
tell
it's
us
getting
how
smarter.
should we get on board? Should people then go with Women Love Tech, or tell us about? Tell us how.
So we've
people
Because
get
you're a
involved in
great
it.
mentor.
thank
particularly
you.
for women. And
You've really got
I
me
really want to thank you
inspired
for
to
that.
learn more.
Good.
And
So
I
how
think
do
a
they
lot
go
of people
about
there, I
it?
really am
How do-
inspired.
yeah.
I think a lot of other people will be, because I used to go, I want to know more, but I don't really know how and what to do. And technical thing, I was thinking, it's probably a bit too much for me. But
It's
now,
not.
I'm really feeling empowered more.
Yes.
And it can
Yeah.
free your life up a bit
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of good things, and let's get on the ride, guys.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, you
So
can't
we're-
fight it, can you?
No.
It's
So
there.
we're doing two things. We've just launched our own mentoring platform on Women Love Tech, so that you can
Yay.
sign up and be mentored or be a mentee. And we're also planning to do some AI courses to simplify it.
I'm
Because
so putting my
this
hand
is-
up for
Oh,
that.
so this is
I really am. And any other
We'll
listener.
put this on
'cause I
our
wanna learn.
on our show notes.
Yes,
so
great.
everyone
Strength for
Thank
life,
you,
guys.
guys.
And I've got a hell of a lot to learn.
Oh my God, I could talk to you to the cows come home. But I do want to say one thing. Listeners, you've heard the interview today. She's the most dynamic human.
Oh, amazing.
I love
Totally.
I love a Bex and a lie down. I love to have a little lava, sleep some night. Where do you get the energy from?
I think I love what I do. I always loved storytelling from when I was a little girl growing up in the country. It was
Magic.
a bit isolated in Mudgee, let me tell you.
It's magic.
It's beautiful, though, isn't
And
it?
I still get
so
excited
your
by
passion,
it.
you run on passion.
And I love the fact that technology allows me to tell stories in different ways. And I think that it's interesting because media has totally democratized so that people are everyone's got a voice now. It was the case that as editor-in-chief of Women's Weekly, I decided what was going to be the cover. I literally was curating, news in the magazine that everyone read. But now actually we're our own creators of content.
Interesting.
And so you
Thanks
have
to
these,
podcasts.
hence the podcast.
Influencers.
And what do you do? Do you walk? We're running out of time, but walk, inspire women, go, how does she do it? How do you balance your world besides passion?
And she's been happily married. Any tips
two
on
kids,
that?
two kids.
Get the man
Do you
from
walk?
England
Get a
to
very
follow you
patient
out.
husband.
What's your backup as into chill zone? What do you do?
Chill zone is at the moment it's
Music,
rowing.
dancing, rowing.
Rowing.
There you go.
Whoa,
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool. Still
and
water.
swimming and
Still
swimming.
water.
I did a rough
Swimming, there you
rough
go.
water.
Dies a fish.
Yeah, I love
Ah,
swimming.
I did the rough water mastery at Coleroy Beach
Good
on
girl.
Saturday.
Oh, that's scary.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Great with the cyclonic
I'm getting
bloody
into it more now because
tides.
Lane
It's
Beach,
great.
she told me off because I said I didn't
She's
want to get my
great.
hair
She's a
done.
Melbourne girl.
I had
Yeah.
the Hollywood sort of hair done, and I said I didn't want to get out because Nicola going to get out the back. And I said,
So rowing and swimming, it's always important
Family
to-
balance.
for
But,
anyone
the balance,
listening.
the balance
your
is
world.
right. And
Yeah.
actually, I remember once someone saying to me that, Robyn, you can be a really successful editor or journalist, but unless you have your balance in life right, you're actually not a success.
Wow,
And
I
I've
love that.
always
we
remembered
love
that.
Got to
that.
remember that line for
Yeah.
our book. I love
Yeah,
that.
'cause
well,
you
AI is going to remember it for us.
And my last question, I know we're running out of time, is did you have a mentor yourself?
Do you know, my own mentor was my grandmother because when I was
love
growing
that.
up, we didn't have
What
sort
was
of
her name?
mentors. Marjorie.
That's beautiful.
Marjorie. I
Yeah,
like
and
that
she
name.
was a beautiful woman
That's
who
special.
I learnt so much from, and I loved her dearly.
Well,
And
country too, time.
yes.
Just cooking
And didn't your
scones.
dad, I've listened to a couple of things, wasn't your grandfather sort of said you could do anything as well? He was a bit of a positive injection in
Yeah, he
Robyn.
was. My grandfather said to me, and I remember being about, that awkward teenager. And he said to me, Robyn, I wish I was around for when you're older, because one thing I know about you is that you can do anything that you set out to. You will be able to achieve anything that you set out to. And so I actually took him at face value.
Yep.
I
We had
thought,
dads.
I can actually, can't I?
So that was your grandfather?
That was my grandfather,
God.
but in terms of, my mother was also a very strong figure because she had 5 children in the country, and growing up, we grew up in the country, and then she saw me at university and came to the day that I received my degree, and she was trying to
Graduation.
put on my cape and hat, and I'm like, Mum, if you want to wear these fashion accessories. You've got to go and get your own degrees.
Yeah.
Anyway, blow me down. She's got a PhD.
I
She
love
went to
it.
Oxford. She went to Oxford.
At what age did she do
in her
that?
60s.
You know what?
How do you
just
do that in the
another
country?
thing-
She's moved to the city.
Oh, yeah.
You know
Thank
what?
God.
We are
Sydney,
all
Rosebank.
Doing my head in
about,
otherwise.
transforming your life. You
Yes.
can
Yeah.
flip it. You can
I
change
love
things
it.
at any
Can flip
age and
it.
stage.
Let's
We're
do a
all
podcast
about
on your mum.
kicking
Yeah.
ass at any age, and we think you're a role model. But I tell you what,
are.
hands off to your mother.
Yeah.
Because
bless.
for her to
And
do
grandma
that,
and
and grandma,
Are we
it
getting
goes
the
in
wine
that strong line. But okay.
Wind up 5-10 minutes.
I know,
Don't
but
you
we
love it?
never.
I did a bit
This
of
is
this
gonna
with
be-
Sam.
Either we split into a
I'm so
two-part
fascinated.
series, but we've got
Okay.
Robyn here. Okay, who wants to rock and roll? I think I will. If you could share a back fence with anybody on planet Earth, Robyn, who would it be and why?
Jane Fonda.
Oh, you and I had twins, baby. That's
We love
exactly
her.
what I said too. Wow,
love her.
tell me why.
Because she is such an inspiration to me and has always been, I always say to young women that they need to put their head above the parapet. They need to not be invisible. They need to be heard. And Jane Fonda has done that throughout her whole career, and she's always put herself into matters that are really important and worth her time. And so I remember when she turned 60, she said, now I'm spending the rest of my life and it's going to be on the environment, and that's what she campaigns for.
Convictions.
Now, she has the conviction,
Yeah.
and, she's fearless, and I love fearless
Tenacious.
women.
Wow, and she's coming out to Australia, so watch
Love
this
that.
space.
Yes.
Jane Fonda,
We're
we
attempting to
we love you.
move
Yeah.
her this way.
Come to the back fence, Jane.
Yes.
That's right.
Okay, last question. It's a hard one because we've got a choice of two.
Oh, you can just throw them. I'll keep on going.
If you had the
with Robyn.
opportunity of meeting your 21-year-old self, what would you say to her and why?
I would actually say to learn two things, to say yes and to say no, when to say those two things. Because, you
I get
need to
that.
take
Used to
opportunity
be.
and say yes to things even if you're scared. You need to recognise when you need to say no. And so I say yes a lot, too much, and it's exhausting because, I always want to please. And so one thing that I'm trying to do is to actually look after me. It's like, the old,
Oxygen mask.
oxygen mask, we
So
all
true.
know. And so sometimes we can, us as women particularly,
Yeah.
we drain every bit of energy we've got because we, want to give all the time, but we've got to learn to give back to ourselves.
That's
I love
such a
that.
beautiful
That was beautiful.
thing.
So you would say that to your 21-year-old self.
So
How
it's like
beautiful.
say
That's very
yes,
powerful.
but have your boundaries up.
Yeah.
And we've got to throw it in because,
So
when,
there's
it's not every
yeah.
day we get Robyn,
No,
at the
no.
back fence.
Little old me. I don't know what you're talking
oh,
about.
The
You're
girl
not a
from,
little
the
old
girl
me, let me
from
tell you.
Mudgee, who
Yeah.
snuck into the Oscars
Great
and
wines out of
crashed and
Mudgee.
whatever.
Very
they
good
they
wines.
certainly
Loved
do.
Mudgee
What makes
wines.
you happy?
I find that family that make me very happy. I've got two beautiful sons and a beautiful
Who've
husband.
been very successful.
And
Yes,
and I'm very grateful to, I feel blessed that I've got these gorgeous men in my life. And, it's...
Heaven.
I never take it for granted, and I love spending time with them.
You'd be the best mummy, Mo.
Look
Oh,
at
they've
that,
moved to
beautiful.
America,
Strong
my
and
two
soft.
sons. And
Good holidays. You just get out the AI thing
That's
and
right.
get the best thing
I've got
there
AI
on it. and
working
it's
on
like,
it, don't you worry.
Yeah, good girl.
Well,
good
look
girl.
at thank you so much for
Yeah,
coming
thank
on.
you,
Thank you
Robyn.
for having
Everybody,
me.
thank you for listening.
you.
We lassoed you.
Don't forget to rate and review.
You
this
guys
one
are
here
great, I
is,
tell you.
know.
You're just
Wow.
like, I love you guys.
Oh, well, you know more than
I wish you
anyone,
were
so
both
that-
over my back fence.
Hey, you're welcome up to Palmy, that's for sure.
I'll be up to Palmy for sure.
Now, we liked us, like everyone, to rate. Diane likes to give her own ratings now. And then we've got
God.
Robyn Foyster here
It's
at
a
the back
hard
fence.
one.
What does Robyn get from Jodie?
How do you get over 5 out of AI? I'm just gonna give you 50 out of 5.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Let's say that. Wow. Thank you for listening. Thank
You're
you,
the
Mary.
champion.
Ciao, ciao.
Look forward to chatting next week. Bye.